Alright, so I'm going to attempt to show you how to paint this one type of flower. And I say attempt because I have to hold my phone while also painting, so we'll see how this goes. But this is just one type of flower that I paint, and I don't really know if it's a real flower, but I think it is. So let's see. I'm going to start by creating kind of a mid-tone circle. Even though that looks a little light, that's just because there's a little bit of water in it. It's actually pretty pink. So anyway, so I'm going to paint this ring. Now I'm using oil paints, so I'm using water-soluble oil paints, which are a little bit different, but not that different. They just use water instead of oil. So I did that, and then now I'm going to take some white. So basically, all art, well, all painting is the use of contrast to create light and shadows. So only when we can see the shadows can we see the light. We have to have white or a light color and a darker color in order to give shape to something. So I'm putting this ring of white all the way around the flower. Now I'm using a flat brush. I primarily use flat brushes. That allows me to get a somewhat clean edge, even though I'm going to be making the edge later. I hope my camera's not like bouncing around. It's like the Blair Witch Project. Okay, so now I have my white. I'm going to get a smaller flat brush. And I'm going to start pulling the white into the pink in a circular motion, which is the beginning of our blending. This is a very simple blending technique. Basically, we are trying to get the dark pink into the white and the white into the dark pink. This is my total Bob Ross moment right now. This is a happy little flower. So again, I'm going to go back. A lot of painting is just about detail orientation, patience. Doing something again and again. And one thing to remember with flowers or anything organic is that you have to, sometimes for me, certainly if you're a perfectionist, you have to actually make an effort to make things irregular, because nature's never regular. It's like, it's never a perfect circle. It's never perfect lines. If you're making something that's from nature, then it's going to have all these little irregularities, and that's what's going to make it actually look normal. So I'm going to grab more white, and I'm going to start kind of creating my real edge. And you know, having like this kind of piles of white are okay, except it just takes a lot longer to dry. So, you know, if that's important to you, then you want to smooth those out. So if you noticed when I came around and did the edges, I'm intentionally making them irregular. Okay, so now I'm going to start pulling this down. Now I've moved my flat brush so that it's not like at its widest point, but that it's at kind of a side angle. That's going to give me a sharper finish line. One thing about paintings too that people don't realize is that it only starts to look good usually at the end. So can't really judge it until it's done. Alright, I'm going to take that white and I'm going to kind of cover my endings, basically. Alright, oh, I just realized I got a little white into here. Maybe a little bit more into here. So now this is kind of the editing phase. So go through, see what needs a little bit more help, what doesn't. Now when I'm doing this part, I'm not pushing as hard on my brush. I'm allowing it to be softer. Okay, now I'm going to take some of my pink and kind of back paint, so this will give that more of a shadow. That's my speaker. Okay, so now I'm going to get just a little bit darker this pink to really kind of drive home the shadow. So like I said, all shape is formed by light and shadow. So I'm going to keep doing this basically until it has the level of shadow that I'm looking for. So I'm basically taking my pink, which is kind of my mid-tone, and I'm mixing just a touch of black, really just a little bit because it goes a long way, in order to create enough contrast between the two that when I squint at it, that it becomes three-dimensional basically. But I also know that I'll be adding to the centerpiece, so I'm not concerned about the center right now. I'm concerned about the gradation between the darkest pink into the lightest pink. Okay, I think I'm pretty much getting there. So now I'm going to take some black and pink, and I'm going to fill in my center circle. Now I use pretty much the same brush for everything I do. I'm not one of those people who has a bunch of different mixed colors and different brushes. I'm kind of a blend on blend type of painter. Everyone's different. Everyone has different studio practices. Okay, now I'm going to take a darker color and fill in my center. Now, as you can see, oil paints are very slippery. You kind of have to keep layering sometimes if you really want to get that opacity in there. A lot of painters will paint in layers, you know, like they would have done one layer and then waited a couple days to let that dry. I'm not really that patient. All right, and now I'm going to take a very small brush. Now, typically I would wait for this to dry, but just to show you, illustrate to you how I'll be finishing this little flower, I'm mixing white and yellow, and this probably won't work very well because it really does have to wait to dry because it's going to start mixing the colors, but if I just tap it in, maybe you'll start to see. So now I'm just going to kind of go in circles, tapping in this white yellow. See how it's starting to blend. So basically once it's totally dry, I'll do this again. So when it does start to blend, then you want to clear off the brush Hmm. I might just have to use pure white for this. I'm using a different brush because I need a smaller mark, basically. And sometimes, I mean, you can just kind of go crazy and tap in like little dots wherever you want. I try and keep it somewhat to a pattern because most things in nature do have a pattern. So I'm cleaning off my brush again because anytime if you really want white to stand out, like say you're doing the pupil or something, you do have to kind of clean it off because it starts to blend in with the other pieces, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. A lot of people, that's what they like about oil versus acrylic. See, now I'm just kind of tapping in wherever I want, now that I've set my kind of standard as to what's happening here with the kind of foundational pattern underneath. I've surrendered to the oil paint. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this flower. I'm gonna take a little bit of black, oops, and paint in that very center circle to kind of give it some contrast. You always want a lot of different layers of contrast so that when your viewer's looking at it, they see a lot of different things, not just, you know, one thing or another thing. You kind of want to have multiple layers going into the object, just like real life. All right, that's my first little digital tutorial on flower making. If you kind of back up a little bit, you can see when you squint at it, it starts to have a shape, and that's what you're looking to do. All right, bye.